Chris Edkins, and I'm going to be running the service today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a member of the worship committee, and we have our story today. It's supposed to be about like a return to childhood, and we have a story for all ages. When we meet inside, or in the past pre-COVID, before we met inside, we had a story for all ages just about every week. And because we've been having the shorter services, we haven't had a story for all ages for quite some time. So this service is built around a story for all ages. So welcome everybody to Westside. This is a community where who you are and the values you represent in your everyday life are more important than the specifics of what you believe. We gather together to support each other and to explore our spiritual values and beliefs with each other in a spirit of free and open exploration. So if this is your first time, welcome, and if it's your 1000th time, then also welcome to you. We have a few announcements. You may have heard, if you were here the last couple of weeks, announcements about Family Promise. There's an update to our involvement in Family Promise. The Family Promise organisation does not have anybody staying at the centre. They are putting people up in extended stay hotels at the moment because of COVID. And the residents have a little kitchenette that they can use to do their own cooking. So we don't need to provide them with any meals, but they would still really appreciate any donations of grocery cards, gas cards, gift cards for things like Grubhub or DoorDash, that kind of thing. So who is it? Who's organising, Brad? Who will accept the donations? Can you remember?
Primarily it's Elizabeth Corbett.
Okay, Elizabeth Corbett. Okay.
And I'm on the Family Promise group too, so I can do that.
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, that's the update. So if you were slated to cook a meal, then you don't have to cook a meal. But if you could instead just get a gift card or something, that'd be great. Any other announcements that anybody has? Probably ought to. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
I might tell our visitors about where Reverend Carol is and where she
Where Reverend Carol is?
got her sabbatical.
Oh yes. Our good settled minister, Reverend Carol Badeau, who often runs our services, though here in the UU Church we also have a rich tradition of lay-led services. But Reverend Carol is preparing to do some sabbatical. So she'll be around. She's going to take a few weeks here and a few weeks there. She'll be back and preaching, so you'll see her around, but you may not see her for a few weeks. She's been our minister for about 6 years now, and each year that a UU minister serves, they get a certain number of weeks of sabbatical to use. So she was due to go on sabbatical last year, but because of COVID it was kind of put off, and now instead of taking like a big chunk of 6 months or 8 months altogether, she's just going to take 4 weeks here and 6 weeks there. So there'll be a few more lay-led services than we normally have, but hopefully we'll still have really great quality worship. Also, we were planning to go indoors in September and start using the building again, but the reopening committee's decided that that's not a very good idea, so we're going to carry on meeting outside, or if the weather is bad, on Zoom until through the end of October, and then we'll reassess at that point. So thanks, Jerry. Anything else? Okay, then I'm going to light our chalice. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And my chalice lighting reading today comes from the UUA website. It's a chalice lighting invoking Thoreau by Ben Soul. Let us hold a quiet moment now as we light our chalice. Henry David Thoreau wrote in his journal on February 2nd, 1841, "A child asked his father what became of the old moon, and he said, 'It was cut up into stars.' Consider the light, light out of darkness, light begets light. The light which the God of Genesis brought out of the darkness is the light that became our world. Our sun's light reflecting off the moon is eclipsed, but then returns to us as our earth quietly moves out of its way. In our current scientific understanding of the origins of the universe, the light of everything that exploded from not quite nothing is the light that became maybe everything of which we are barely a part. This light we now kindle here will become a light for each of us to carry forth as we find our way through the shadows on our path. Let us be grateful for the light in our lives, even as we honour the dark from which the light came." So our story today, which is kind of a children's story, but it has quite a profound moral behind it, which, you know, we're going to explore after I read the story. But it's called The Cookie Tree. And I'm going to read it for everybody. Hey, welcome everybody. The village of Owlgate was quiet and tidy, and nothing surprising ever happened there. Everything had a place, and everything was in its place. Everybody knew why things happened, and everything happened just as it was supposed to. Nothing surprising ever happened because nothing surprising was allowed to happen. That way, said the people of Owlgate with satisfaction, you always know where you are. So there's a picture of the village here. It looks very neat and well organised, and it has a wall around it. So nothing unpredictable can get in. One morning in the centre of the village, a strange tree appeared. It had not been there the night before, but it was there this morning. It was a small tree with bark that shone like silver, and round golden leaves that twinkled in the sun, and under every leaf there hung what looked like a chocolate cookie. A girl named Meg was the first to see it. Her window, tucked away under the heavy thatch of her house, faced the square, and when she peeped out of the window early in the morning, there stood the tree. Meg got dressed quickly and ran down to the square. She walked round and round the tree. Then she went to find her mother. She can tell that even the children in Owlgate are very well behaved. "Mother," she said, "is it all right if I pick a cookie?" Her mother was bustling about the kitchen, frying eggs and toasting bread. "You mean pick out a cookie, dear," she said, "and not before breakfast." "No, I mean pick one. There's a cookie tree in the village square." Her father had just sat down to the breakfast table. He began to laugh. "Oh, what a good imagination my little girl has." "Well, come and see," said Meg. Here's the little girl. Oh, I forgot to show you the picture of the cookie tree and how beautiful it looks. How miraculous. When her father and mother saw the tree, they blinked. "It wasn't there last night," said her mother. "Where on earth did it come from?" "Maybe a magician sent it," said Meg. "Maybe it's a present to the village." Her parents weren't listening. "Why should a tree bear cookies?" said her father in a worried voice. "What can it be for?" "I don't know," said Meg, "but can I eat one?" "Certainly not," said her father. "They may be poisonous. I'll go and call the mayor." The mayor was a brisk and lively man, and he was briskly and livelily trimming his beard. He looked in the mirror with his head on one side and snipped away. Suddenly he saw Meg's father looking over his shoulder. He gave a jump and cut too much out of the beard on that side. "Now see what you've made me do," he said crossly. "I hope you've got a good reason for startling me at this hour, or any other hour," he added. "You won't believe me," said Meg's father, "but there's a tree covered with cookies in the village square." "Who left it there?" cried the mayor. "I don't know," said Meg's father, "but you'd better have a look at it." The mayor put on his red gown and his golden chain and hurried out. By the time he got to the square, quite a lot of people had gathered. Some of them pointed and some of them laughed. Many looked worried and whispered together. Morgan the miller came and had come from his mill, dusting the flour off his thick arms. "It's a joke," he shouted, roaring with amusement. "'Tisn't natural," groaned Basil the butcher. "Ghostly, that's what it is." "A warning of trouble to come," said Mrs. Gape the grocer, shaking her head. Children had squeezed between the grown-ups. They stood beside Meg, peering and giggling, looking with delight at the silver tree with its golden leaves. Meg's friend Janet said, "What's happened? Did somebody plant a cookie?" "Is it yours?" a big boy named Con said to Meg. "I'll trade you my knife with the bone handle for it." "Can we climb it?" asked the little boy named Dylan. "I think a magician sent it," Meg answered. "I think it's a present to the village." All the children nodded to each other. That explained everything. It says all the children are looking up with longing at the chocolate cookies on the tree. The mayor pushed his way through the crowd. He stared up at the tree, mopping his face with a silk handkerchief. "A cookie tree!" he exclaimed. "Impossible!" "Why?" asked Meg boldly. "I have never seen one before," said the mayor, tugging at his lopsided beard. "Nobody has ever seen one before, and there is no mention of it anywhere in the town records. We must get to the bottom of this. Who put it here? Why? What is it for?" Nobody answered. The small boy Dylan piped up, "It's a present from a magician." "Nonsense," shouted the mayor. "Why would a magician send a cookie tree here? What's it for? Everything must be for something. This makes no sense at all." "Send for the village councillors," suggested Basil the butcher. Oh, it should be, I don't know. I can't remember the voice I used now. That's that "'tisn't natural, isn't it? 'Tain't natural. "Send for the village councillors," suggested Basil the butcher. Men ran off to find them. In a wide street of tall houses lived Finn the Fat. When he was called, he slowly and deliberately finished eating a large steak, wiped his lips, brushed his hair, put on his long wide cloak, and slowly came. In a narrow street lived Thelwyn the Thin. He was as thin as paper. He ate almost nothing, and when the messenger came for him, he was breakfasting on the smell of bacon and a glass of water. Alwyn the Ancient was so old that he looked like a wrinkle with a man around its edges. He lived in an old house, and 2 messengers had to help him get up from his chair. But he walked very spryly once he was up, and got to the square as soon as the others did. The 3 councillors examined the tree from one side and then from the other. They stroked their chins thoughtfully. The mayor rapped his staff on the cobblestones. "Well, sirs," he said, "what would you say we have here?" Began Thelwyn the Thin. "It seems to be a tree covered with sweet biscuits or small cakes of a dark brown and glossy colour. They appear to be growing on the tree," pointed out Finn the Fat. Alwyn the Ancient stood on tiptoe. Carefully he broke off the lowest of the cookies. Everybody went, "Ooh." He popped it into his mouth and chewed. Everybody chewed with him. He swallowed. Everybody swallowed. "Without making any rash statements," he quavered, "I would say that it was a chocolate cookie." Everybody went, "Ah." "I've never seen anything like it," Thelwyn the Thin said doubtfully. "I don't believe in it," snapped Finn the Fat. "It should not exist, but it does," said Alwyn the Ancient. The mayor hopped on one foot as he always did when he was excited. "Gentlemen," he said, "what we must know is what is it for? Everything has to be for something. Everything has to have a reason, and until we know the reason for this, we cannot live happily or peacefully in Owlgate. The reason for the well is to give us water. The reason for the sun is to grow our crops. The reason for a mayor is to make speeches, put in Elwyn the Ancient. The mayor hopped on both feet as he always did when he couldn't think of anything more to say. This tree, said Thelwyn, could be a prognostication of some pending disaster. Just what I was going to say, nodded Finn. In other words, said Elwyn, a warning of trouble to come. Ah, what did I tell you? Muttered Mrs. Gape the grocer. The mayor turned pale. Then what we want is deeds, not words. We must send for Sir Owen, Lord of Owlgate. Sir Owen lived in a strong grey castle on a rocky hill above the village. Someone went to fetch him, and soon he came striding down the cobbled street with his bright sword hanging by his side. He frowned at the tree. "What's all this, eh?" he barked. "Witchcraft." At that word, everybody moved quickly back. Everybody except the children, who were busy looking at the tree, with its fluttering leaves, twinkling in the sun, and all the chocolate cookies rustled with a crisp, delicious sound. "This has always been a quiet village," said Sir Owen, "and now that's how we want it to keep it, hey? We want no goblin trees, no demonizing, no devilry in Owlgate. Cut it down." "Yes, yes," crooned Mrs. Gape the grocer. "Down and into the fire with it." "One moment, my lord," said Elwyn the Ancient. "If this is a warning, a sign that something strange is about to happen, then perhaps we should wait to find out what it is." "No strangeness and changeness here," cried Basil the butcher. "Let things stay as they are. Don't touch the tree or something worse may come." "On the other hand," put in Thelwyn, "since it is rather pretty and certainly very useful, perhaps we should send it to the king." "Ah, there's a thought," laughed Morgan the miller. He clapped his hands so that a cloud of flour rose up and made everybody sneeze. "The king will give us gold and silver for it. Owlgate will be his favourite village." "As for me," growled Finn the Fat, turning his back on the tree, "I don't believe in it, and therefore I will not discuss it." On every side people began to argue. Some said one thing and some said another. Thelwyn, Elwyn and the mayor and Sir Owen put their heads together and began to talk excitedly. The children moved closer to the tree until they were all around it in a ring. Meg put out a finger and stroked the silvery bark. The smallest children stood on tiptoe to watch. The bigger ones looked at each other out of the corners of their eyes. Meg took hold of the smooth trunk and gave it a little shake. The leaves whispered and the chocolate cookies rattled. The boy Tom put his hand on the trunk and gave it a big shake. The other boys and girls stretched out their arms and helped him. Down fell the cookies, pattering softly on the cobblestones with a noise like many bare feet. Oops, I should show you the picture of the children shaking the tree and all the cookies coming cascading down. One of the townspeople noticed, for they were deep in argument. At last the mayor waved his hands in the air and shouted, "Silence, silence, good citizens, silence!" Everybody became quiet. "My friends," said the mayor, "we have come to a decision. In fact, since 3 of anything is better than 1, we have come to 3 decisions. Everything should have a purpose. We now have 3 purposes for this tree. Knowing the purposes, we may know how to act. Since we fear that the tree may be magical, we shall cut it down so that it can do us no harm." Mrs. Gape led her friends in applause. "However, since it may be a warning, we shall keep it in the town hall for 3 days and watch it." Basil the butcher and a number of other people clapped their hands in agreement. "And after that we shall send it to the king," finished the mayor. Morgan the miller and his friends cheered between flowery sneezes. "Very well, Sir Owen," said the mayor. "Please begin cutting down the tree." Sir Owen drew his sharp sword. He stepped forward. His eyes became round with astonishment. "What tree?" he said. There was no sign of it. Only a few crumbs rolled in the breeze. "What has become of it?" gasped the mayor. Rows and rows of widely grinning children looked at him without saying anything. "Where has it gone? Speak up," bellowed Sir Owen. "Please, sir, it just quietly folded up smaller and smaller and then disappeared," said Meg. "After we ate the cookies," added her friend Janet. But, what was it for? Everything must be for something," stammered the mayor. The little boy Con stuck out his tongue and licked chocolate off his lips. "That was what it was for," he said. Somewhere a magician smiled with satisfaction. And here's all the children looking very happy and satisfied with themselves. And that's the end of our story today. So I think is the moral of the story, but I'm going to solicit some suggestions from people as to what they think it might be, if anybody wants to cogitate and make a suggestion.
If you get an unexpected gift, welcome it.
Yes, if you have if an unexpected gift turns up, then welcome it. That's a good suggestion. Anything else?
Bringing joy and pleasure to our lives is just as purposeful as more practical things.
Bringing joy and pleasure in our lives is just as purposeful as any other purpose that something could have. Yeah.
Joy can come from unexpected places, not just assumed places.
Yeah, joy can come from something unexpected. Anything else? I'm going to suggest there's something which is kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, which is we have to be careful about over-analysing things. You know, the children were able to enjoy the pleasure of the tree because they hadn't yet been completely conditioned to think that everything might be a risk, and that, you know, as adults we have to think about it might be poisonous. You know, that's our job, I guess, as adults, to think about it. You know, so we have to kind of be conditioned to think as adults, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if we can't let go of that when the time is right, then we'll never be able to enjoy the little surprises that come up if we're always suspicious about things. Yeah. It's, you know, there's not a simple answer in terms of we shouldn't overanalyze things. Sometimes we need to analyze things, you know. But Barry?
I don't have analysis of anything, but I have a question. And that's what do you think the children grew up? Did they grow up to be like the typical relatives, or did this make them more open?
Oh yeah, did the children grow up to be like the adults when they became adults in Owlgate? This set of children.
Spent the rest of their lives looking for another Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, I actually do have cookies here. Like, they're all chocolate cookies. I've got like chocolate peanut butter covered cookies, and if anybody's allergic to peanut butter, I've got some chocolate cookies with orange centres. Like, we call them Jaffa cakes in the UK, and I'll come and hand them out in a minute. But what are they for? I picked them from a tree that a magician sent. Yes.
Put them in a Kroger bag.
I had an interesting parallel to that. When we were living down in another area, there was a tree that they had recently cut down. There was a stump, and I put a lot of corvids around, some crows. I put some peanuts out there. Those corvids would gather around, they'd look, they wouldn't get close to it. Finally, one got close, but almost pick it up, and then he dart away, and then he got a little closer. Knew it had to be a trap. Had to be a trap. Had to be something wrong. Finally, eventually took off. You know, but very similar situation.
Yeah.
It had to be a
he's maybe had a bad experience before. Yeah, yeah. I've seen some great YouTube videos of people putting squirrel assault courses out to see how many hoops a squirrel will jump through or learn to jump through in order to get a reward. It's an incredibly large number of tricks they can learn to just get one little reward. Yeah, amazing. Okay, I'm going to hand out some cookies.